I'm Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium. I'm here with you to explore your intuition, the supernatural, and self-empowerment. This is Third Eyesight. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Third Eyesight. I hope that you are doing okay. I am not going to be publishing an episode on the 25th. And I'm also going on a week-long retreat very soon. So I have published today's episode today because I wanted to put it up and also promote it on social media before I head out for this week-long retreat. And on the 25th, there will be no episode because I will not have had time to work on an episode, record it, edit it, publish it, because I'll be on this retreat. So after today's episode, the next episode of Third Eyesight will be coming to you on September 1st. So stay tuned for that. And maybe take a week to catch up with old episodes if you want to. I can't believe we are about to approach 4 years of Third Eyesight, which is insane. Insane. Another thing I want to mention is I am hosting a group mediumship reading for the podcast. Right now, we have a few people who are joining us, which is great, but I would love some more folks to join. And it's completely free to you. All that it really means is that it's going to be published on Third Eyesight Podcast. Unedited, all the moments, the real audio from the group mediumship reading on the podcast as its own episode. Just go to juanfranciscospirit.com/podcast group and let me know that you want to join and I'll add you to the list. It is for around mid-September. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the date. I should remember the date, but I'm pretty sure it's September 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern. But please don't quote me on that. I know that. How can I forget the date of my own group mediumship reading? Mid-September at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That's slightly embarrassing. But anyways, I'm human. I'm imperfect. Let me know if you want to join at my website /podcast group. So I'm coming to you today with what's really on my mind right now is breaking personal illusions. Now, I want to be very honest and say that sometimes I think in past podcast episodes where I talk about myself, my own growth journey, I just wonder if I commiserate a lot. And this podcast is not for me to complain to you about my personal problems. It's not for me to talk to you about the issues I'm going through and complain about them. So I hope it doesn't come across that way in past episodes. And I really want to be intentional in how I talk about personal growth, and I want what I share about myself to be helpful to you. So moving forward, I want to be really sure that I tie my own story back to how it can help you or what you can get out of it for your own personal growth journey. So this brings me to today's topic, breaking personal illusions. Before I get into the personal angle to this for me, I want to talk about a conversation I recently had on the podcast that has led me to do a deep dive into their podcast. And I just find it incredibly interesting that within the span of a week, I've been experiencing in my personal life this idea of breaking illusions. And at the same time, within the last 2 weeks, I've talked with a fellow psychic medium who has been doing the work of breaking illusions in the mediumship world, and that's Jeni Juranics. The last episode with Jeni was so great. It was such a great conversation, and I had first heard her on the Mediumship Matters podcast with Hannah McIntyre, talking about having experienced physical mediumship seances that were fraudulent, and calling the person, the gentleman, who led those seances as the psychic medium, as the physical medium, calling him out on it, getting a lot of slack for calling him out, but doing it anyways because she felt it was the right thing to do. She feels it is the right thing to do. And that led me, having heard her on Hannah's podcast, led me to interview her on this podcast. And then interviewing her on this podcast led me to her podcast, to Jeni Juranics' podcast, where I think there are 8 parts, but there are 8 episodes, maybe a little more than that, focused on fraudulent mediumship and her journey of calling this guy out. And it involves so many interesting solo episodes where she talks about her experience and talks about sort of investigative work she's done to find out, why was this guy hired for this physical mediumship conference, given that there's a video out there of his fakery that shows his fakery. And she talks to a few individuals, including someone who organizes, in this case, it was the Lilydale event, that in some way was connected to what he was doing, but not directly connected. But he was there during the Lilydale event. Lilydale being a town in New York State, by the way, that's known to be a psychic town, which I want to go to one day. So she talks to that event organizer. She talks to a few people who have sat in this physical mediums seances, including Michael Mayo, who is someone I also heard on the Mediumship Matters podcast, who sounds really interesting and actually worked directly with this person, helping them with the seances, and found him out. Another gentleman who was, I believe it's in Switzerland, in Basel, who sat in on the seance, one of the seances with this gentleman, and filmed it secretly. And it's so fascinating. I've been listening to these episodes by Jeni Juranics back to back. I'm like eating it all up. And one of the questions that Jeni poses is, after all this time, why is this person still allowed to do what he does? And why don't people see that he's a fake? Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go back to the last episode of Jeni, where we talk about the things she saw in the seance room, the things she saw him doing. I'll just give you a Spark Notes version right now. Things like, he's supposed to be tied up to a chair in like I don't know what else to call it other than a toilet tent or a shower tent. And when it's time for spirit to do its thing, the room is pitch dark, by the way, except for some dim red light, usually red light. And it's hard to see him, right? But she said, I saw him walking around the room, doing things, waving something to make wind. And in one of these videos that were released, secretly filmed in this room, in this event, you see him taking his shirt off and waving it around the room near the people who are seated so they could feel that it's the breeze from spirit, right? So things like that. And this isn't to say that physical mediumship is fake. I believe it is possible, but this man, this dude, it's so obviously fake. Watching the videos and then hearing the excuses that he comes up with when he is found out. Something like, oh yes, that was me walking around, but spirit led me to do that. Spirit is using my body. Or telling people, when people touch his hand, it can be, if it's not your loved one that you feel when you touch, well, wait a second. Let me rewind. It's not supposed to be his hand, but a hand pops out from the tent. And it's a slimy hand. Who knows? God knows what's on that hand, what's on this arm that's popping out. And people go up to it, and he says beforehand that when this hand pops out, this ectoplasmic hand from spirit, if it's not your loved one you feel, then it could be a spirit guide. If it's not your spirit guide, then it could be the team spirit that works with the physical medium. Excuse after excuse. And so as I'm listening to Jeni's story, as well as the stories of people that she has on her podcast to talk about this physical medium and his events, I ask myself, why are people falling for this? And then I remember my own journey. And I'll get to that in a second, but I will just start with well, first of all, when people are grieving, they want to feel good. They want to feel close to their loved ones. They want to feel something bigger than themselves, and that's understandable. And some people who are not grieving, maybe they just want to feel that bigger thing that's in the universe in the room with them. They want to feel it. And so sometimes when we're desperate to feel that thing, we will search for it in places where people are taking advantage of our desire. They're taking advantage of our desperation. But we'll believe it anyways because it's something. And in mediumship, I mean, gosh, I hear people's stories of how they came to be mediums or the experiences they have. Things like they saw someone at the foot of their bed one day, or it's like the skies open up and the trumpets start playing and for me as a medium, you all know who've listened to the podcast forever and ever that I discovered my mediumship abilities and psychic abilities in 2020, 2021. But I believe they've always been there, those abilities. I believe we all are psychic. I believe we can all be mediumistic. But I've never had experiences where a voice said, "My child, you are a medium," and the skies opened up. It was nothing like that. And I think sometimes people expect the spectacular, the fantastical, for something to feel real from spirit or God or the universe. When spirit speaks to us in the mundane moments of life, in our dreams, in a sign we see on a truck, doesn't always have to be this huge spectacle. In fact, I think some of the most important signs we get are in the mundane parts of life. Because we're not meant to live on the mountaintop all the time. We're not meant to live in lotus position 24/7. We have to live our human life and be human. We're here as spirit beings in human bodies to live and experience this human life. So when I ask myself, why do these people keep falling for this person who is taking advantage of their dollars, their money, who's taking advantage of their grief for some of them, who's taking advantage of this search, the search for more, the search for something bigger than themselves. I did an episode once on spiritual bypassing and how sometimes people will take on a spiritual practice because they want to escape from their problems. They want to escape from themselves. Maybe they don't like themselves. So they want to think beyond, pray beyond any thought of themselves. Or maybe they have a lot of trauma that they rightfully feel pain about. And they'll use spiritual practice to either try to, quote unquote, erase the trauma or to ignore it, avoid it. Now, I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or a medical professional, so please don't come at me saying I'm not trying to say anything wrong here. And I want to be very mindful of the, sometimes there's mental health that's involved here. And as someone like myself who has worked through some trauma and is still working through some trauma, I understand the desire to block things out, to avoid, and to cope by just putting a Band-Aid, not giving that trauma any air to heal, just putting a Band-Aid over it. Well, it still needs that air to heal. And I wonder with some psychic mediums who take it, or people who aren't psychic mediums and are pretending to be, either or, who are taking advantage of people, if the people being taken advantage of, if some of them, not all of them, but some of them are using these moments with these mediums, of these people, to cope with something because it takes them outside of themselves, even if it's fake, even if it's not real, even if there's something iffy about it. And then there's this whole other conversation that I've also recently had about cults, right? Spirituality becoming a cult, and how what a slippery slide to that that can be. With the cult of personality, when a psychic medium or physical medium places himself on a pedestal, like, look what I can do. I'm doing this for you. They may not say those words, but that's the energy they give off. This I keep saying psychic. He is a physical medium. I don't know if he identifies as a psychic medium, but for the purposes of this conversation, I'm going to call him a physical medium because that's what he's known for, and as also being a psychic surgeon. But which I don't know what that is, y'all. Okay, physical medium. This physical medium says things like, if you bring in a camera, or if you get up and walk around the room while I'm doing my thing, you could hurt me. You could hurt the medium. And this is the other thing on another subtopic here. The way that some mediums, including this physical medium, talk about spirit, how spirit works, it's as if they're describing a toddler. I cannot tell you how much that gets on my nerves when people talk about spirit like spirit is a toddler to manage. Oh, it grinds my gears. Grinds my gears. Or like spirit is mischievous, rambunctious, and needs to be guided to do the right thing. It's like, I personally believe, yes, are there spirits that possibly can be mischievous out there? Sure. I'm open to that belief. I just don't pay any attention, and therefore it's not a reality to me. Even if it's real, it's not my reality. It's not part of my, it's not the radio station I'm dialed into, to steal a metaphor from Hannah McIntyre. I'm not dialed into that radio station, even if that radio station exists. It's not part of my reality. I don't want it to be part of my reality. But when we want to channel spirit for the purpose of healing those in the room, it just doesn't sit right with me to say things like, oh, if you get up and walk around the room while I'm doing this, you could hurt me. You can hurt me. What, spirit's going to hurt me, the medium? Why would spirit do that? What kind of spirit are you channeling? And according to some physical mediums, they're channeling guides and wise souls. Well, let me be specific, according to this physical medium that Jeni Juranics has been talking about. Why would spirit hurt a medium because someone wants to walk around the room? Doesn't make any sense to me. Or don't dance, or don't clap, because you can hurt the medium. And this physical medium has gone so far to say that he and his team said that he almost suffered a heart attack because someone secretly filmed one of his seances. I'm sorry, I want to laugh at that. I think it's so ridiculous. So ridiculous. And physical mediumship is supposed to really take a lot of energy out of you. Fair. But according to Jeni and other people that she's had on her podcast, this physical medium goes out for a drink within a day after he does his session. Nothing wrong with drinking, okay? I like a beer sometimes. I like some rosé sometimes. But if it's supposed to take that much out of you to the point that if someone walks around the room, they can give you a heart attack, how are you going straight to alcohol so quickly within a day? Don't you want to be in bed? And how are you doing a seance the next day and the next day within a conference week? There's just things that don't click and make sense. So going back to my original point, how can people believe this? I think that when we are searching for hope, searching for meaning, searching for connection with the other side because we've lost someone we love and miss so much, sometimes we go to the wrong places to get that solace, to get that peace, to get that connection. Where, spoiler alert, you don't need to go anywhere for that connection. That connection is already in here. You're already connected to your loved ones. Yes, you can't feel them every day. I know. Sometimes it's hard to feel them. I don't feel my loved ones every day. I know they're there. I have faith that they're there. but I don't get signs every day. I don't get signs every month. Maybe once every few weeks. Sometimes it takes 2 months. But we have to have faith. And it hurts when we feel like we don't get a sign. But we have to be so careful who we're going to feel that connection. I tell all my clients, ask any of my clients, I tell them at the end of the reading, most all of them I tell them, I just want you to know that I am a reminder that you're already connected. You bring your loved ones with you. They're not here in a waiting room with Juan at his New York City studio waiting to talk to you. You bring them with you. So know that you can go now and connect with them. Come back to me whenever you want, but don't come back to me all the time because you don't need me. I'm just here. What this reading serves to do is to remind you that you're already connected. And as a psychic medium, that is my goal. My goal is to remind people that they already have the bond. We are God. We are pieces of God walking around in human flesh. We don't need to reach to feel God, but it's okay to go get that reminder sometimes. But if we want to get that reminder from people who are going to pretend to manifest spirit by waving their t-shirt around to create a breeze in the room, we have to really ask ourselves some questions. We have to ask ourselves, why am I going to this person? And is it because there is a spectacularity, a fantasy to it? I don't mean fantasy as in, well, yes, it's made up, but spirit doesn't have to make loud noises for us. If they want to, they will. But why are we requiring such a spectacle from spirit? Listen, I wish that Mother Mary could appear to me in full form right in front of me. And I'll get to Mother Mary in a second when I talk about my personal journey right now. I wish she could. I wish I could see my grandmother in full form. I have some relatives, I have some family members who have seen their loved ones in full form in front of them. One of my relatives saw my grandmother in full form in front of them, made of little specks of light. And the specks of light dispersed after she finished talking to him. No reason for him to lie. He's only told us, really. And maybe some friends. He's not making money off of that story, and he's been telling that story for years. So I believe him. And I think, why can't I experience that? But I know there's a reason I'm not. There is some reason that I am not experiencing that with spirit. And sometimes I get surprised. I was in the gym about a month ago. At the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow, and when I looked, it was gone. It was like a split-second experience I had, but I really felt someone was there. I really thought someone was there. And I just say, thanks, spirit. Cool, thank you. Hi. And when I look back at all the experiences I've had, from my grandfather ringing my doorbell in the middle of the night to seeing a beautiful chromatic, polychromatic figure walking through walls in a hotel in a split second, I've had some amazing experiences. But then I tell myself, I want more. I want something bigger. And there's nothing wrong with wanting more from spirit. But we also have to have faith, because if we're basing our belief, we're basing our faith on being shown the spectacular more and more and more, then are we really trusting God? Are we really trusting our journey? Are we really trusting spirit that they know what they're doing in our lives? It stinks. It stinks when we don't get the signs we want, when we want to see a signier sign. That's human. I don't want us to judge ourselves for wanting bigger signs from spirit. But this is a journey of being in the physical world. If we were meant to experience spirit 24/7, the way we would experience spirit indefinitely, eternally, when we're back on the other side, we would have never come to be born on earth to begin with. What would be the point? What would be the point of living in human bodies in a sort of separation from the spirit world? Although it's not separate. This is where it gets really trippy. We've come to this universe, physical universe, to live an experience that is different from being always in the spirit world, to learn things about our souls, to learn things about love, contrast. If we were meant to experience the spiritual in the physical world the way we will again someday experience it on the other side, what would be the point of living this human life? So we have to live in our humanity and in these meat sacks. It's important. We're here to learn. And I think that's where the need for faith comes in. And sometimes we believe in illusions because we believe they're going to make us feel more connected to spirit, to God, to the peace of God that's within us, when there's really no substance to the illusion. It's very sad that someone out there, people out there, are taking advantage of us who are undergoing traumas, have undergone traumas, whether it's abuse or it's losing a dear loved one. There are people who are willing to take advantage of that. And it boggles my mind thinking of this physical medium that Jeni talks about. You know, I like to think I'm a good person. I like to think that I have good intentions. I'm going to say this. I know I have good intentions. I will fuck up sometimes. Absolutely. But I know I have good intentions. To think that someone would willingly lie to people about channeling spirit, it pisses me off and I can't comprehend it. It doesn't make it just, I can't believe people like that exist. It just doesn't make sense to me. So please, if you are in a place where you really want to feel connected, seek out the connection in the ways that you want to and ask yourself if it's helping you, if it is actually helping you feel closer and more connected. And if something doesn't make sense about it, like, this thing that I'm doing or this person I'm seeing, I feel good afterwards, but there was something about it that doesn't make sense. Ask yourself those questions. I find it so interesting that I'm not speaking for all psychic mediums or people who see physical or psychic mediums, but I guess in terms of my own experience, I'm someone who grew up in the Catholic Church. And I think it's easy for many psychic mediums who were once, I'll say Christians, to judge Christianity or judge Christian ritual, right? Or judge Christian doctrine. But then when it's us, when it's other psychic mediums, we don't want to call them out the same way. We forget that greedy human beings and narcissistic human beings exist in traditional churches and they exist in spiritual, non-religious spaces as well. There are psychic mediums who are a little narcissistic, who are all about getting attention and taking advantage of people. There are bad apples everywhere. But for some reason, it's pretty dang easy to be a psychic medium or physical medium and take advantage of people without paying the consequences of that. And continuing the illusion anyways. And that's why people, I think, need to ask questions. Asking questions is so important. One of the most interesting things I heard in the past 2 months when I was obsessive watching cult documentaries was that the best way to break someone out of a cult is not by telling them you're stupid, you're wrong, this is crazy, what are you doing? The best way to break someone out of a cult is by asking them questions. Well, don't you think that if they really cared about you as a member of their church, They would want you to be connected with your family and not ban your family. Like, isn't that what love is all about? Don't they want you to love your family? Or don't you think that if he says that he almost had a heart attack because you walked around the room in the seance, and then he goes drinking, that same night, or don't you think that him saying that you almost gave him a heart attack walking around the seance room, that he was in poor health, and then him going out drinking the next day, don't you think there's something a little bit contradictory about that? We can ask ourselves these questions too. I'm not saying you're in a cult, y'all. I'm not saying that any of us are in a cult. I'm just saying it's important to question everything. When I was a kid in Catholic school, I would question everything. Maybe not out loud, but I would ask myself questions. And being a little gay kid, because I knew I was gay since the age of 4, or I knew I liked boys, let's put it that way. I ask myself questions all the time. Like, if God unconditionally loves me, why would he hate my actions so much to punish me? You can love me unconditionally, but then send me to eternal damnation? Ask yourself questions. Break the illusion. This brings me to my personal journey right now. So as I'm listening to Jeni's story on Mediumship Matters, then I interviewed Jeni. The night that I interviewed Jeni, I was in the middle of a phase in my dating life. And I had gotten to know somebody, recently, where we had just instant sparks, and it was instant, and he's a great person, and liked him a lot, checked off so many boxes, except one box that was for me a very important box. And I thought, okay, maybe we can't be together. We both decided maybe we can't be together in the long term, but we can just explore whatever this is right now. And then I realized that as time was going on, I was sort of, in my mind, doing pretend boyfriend with this guy mentally, just for myself. And I quickly realized that I couldn't do that to myself anymore. And when I told this person, I think we should just be platonic friends, and they agreed, guess what? I didn't like that. I told my best friend, this is effed up. The fact that I decided this, and then I told him, and when he agreed, I was upset. Hello? So then I asked myself, why am I upset that he agrees with me? And I realized that, I just want to be wanted by this person. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be desired, folks. Nothing wrong with that. But because I got so upset that he agreed with me, and it triggered this wanting to be wanted, it's that upsetness that is a signal to me that there's something I need to work on here about myself. There's something I need to work on in terms of how badly I want to be wanted. And it's that wanting to be wanted that could have kept me pursuing whatever I was pursuing with this person. Playing pretend boyfriend with this person. Creating an illusion for myself. Instead of getting real with myself and saying, Juan, you know what you want out of a long-term relationship one day. This person, you're not going to make each other happy. That can change. Things can change, absolutely. But right now, you're not going to make each other happy. So what are you holding on to? What illusion are you holding on to? And why am I holding on to that illusion? because it helps me feel wanted. Breaking illusions. It's not just something that happens in the spirit world. Well, I mean spiritual world. But then I think, well, everything in life is spiritual. There's nothing in life that is unspiritual. We are spiritual beings living a human life, and every interaction we have is part of our spiritual journey. And this is too. My dating life is part of that journey. And oh gee, is it ever. By the way, this person, very spiritual. That was a box that he checked off. But I had to get real with myself. And I've made a decision recently. I don't want to give in to these illusions I create for myself. So ask yourself, why am I holding on to this person that I know isn't good for me? Why am I seeing this psychic that seems to be full of it, but I keep going back to them? Sorry if that was a huge call out, folks. No judgment. We've all been there. I've been there. I've been to psychics because I was like, I don't know whether to break up with my boyfriend. And I knew what to do. That's the thing. I knew what to do. I knew that we had to break up, but I never did. We never did. This was years ago. Or I never did do it, and it took longer than it needed to. Why am I holding on? And in that question comes the answers that you may not want to hear, but break the illusion. Those answers break the illusion. Those answers being, oh, I just want to feel really connected spiritually. I desperately want to feel connected spiritually. And I don't trust myself to do it on my own. Or I don't trust myself to find somebody else to connect with spiritually. Or I don't trust my gut feelings. Or if I decide to break up with my boyfriend, I'm not going to feel wanted. I'm going to feel alone. I'm going to feel lonely. And then keep asking yourself, well, why am I afraid of feeling lonely? And why would I feel lonely? Because, and the conversation goes on and on. It can go forever. I feel lonely because I feel lonely when I'm single because I just want someone to want me. Well, why do I want someone to want me so much? Because I don't feel like enough on my own. Boom. Or why do I keep seeing the psychic medium who is obviously sort of full of it? Oh, because I want to feel connected to my loved one who passed. Well, why do you have to see this psychic medium to do it? Because I don't know any other medium. Well, can you find another medium? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust myself to find another medium. Taking chances. It's all about taking chances, taking risks. And when you break the illusions, you are taking risks. It's the unknown. But it's in the unknown that we find a lot of answers. But we're afraid to go for those answers because of that uncertain territory. Because sometimes we face some truths that we just don't want to hear. And it's easier to put the Band-Aid over the wound instead of letting it air out. It's why some of us go to addictions. Addictions feel good in the moment, but don't really make us feel good in the long run. But it's easier than truly coping with trauma. Truly addressing trauma. It's easier than living an authentic life because we've been told we're not worth living an authentic life. So we turn to drugs and alcohol, sex to escape from ourselves. We turn to a spiritual meditative group that is very toxic because we are escaping from ourselves. We get to forget about ourselves, but we don't really. Am I making sense? I think this is where I should end the podcast because I can go on forever and ever about this. It's important to ask questions. If you take nothing else away from this episode, just remind yourself to always ask questions. Be like a child. Children are so curious. They're so beautifully curious. We need to keep that curious spirit. Question. Questions like, if God loves me unconditionally, why would he send me to hell? If God doesn't have genitalia, why is he a he? Ask questions. Ask questions and trust yourself. Because your gut knows. Your gut knows when something is just not right for you. Whether it's a certain psychic, a certain girlfriend or boyfriend, a certain kind of job. And all these things are easier said than done. But we can at least ask ourselves those questions to lead us on the right path, to start leading us down the right path for us. Break those illusions. Well, I will see you on September 1st. In the meanwhile, you know that my books are open for readings, psychic card readings, mediumship readings, and I have the psychic mediumship demonstration on, I think it's September 12th. I'll have to check back with you on that one. Go to juanfrancisco.com for my readings. And if you want to join the Third Eyesight mediumship group reading that is free, juanfranciscospirit.com/podcast group. See you on the 1st of September. Take care and God bless. Follow the podcast and please leave a review. If you want me to talk about a specific subject on the podcast or you have a question for the podcast, go to juanfranciscospirit.com and go to my contact page and submit that question.